Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of God Built This Podcast. I'm your host Maxine. I'm on episode 126. He's free! Let me back up on the mic because I'm screaming. He is free. Who am I talking about? Who am I referring to? Mr. Bill Cosby. Mr. Bill Cosby is free. His doctorate degree was revoked. But he is free. He is free for free 99. And Felicia Rashad is happy. And you know what I love about this? I love that she is standing in her boldness. Like I say all the time, we have to be confident in our opinion. And if we change our opinion, be confident in that too. Allow yourself to grow and change your mind. And regardless of whatever backlash she may receive, she is receiving a lot of backlash. I am proud of her and anyone else who is on board with Bill Cosby being free from prison. So for those who may not be familiar with the news, I'm sure you are by now, because when this hit, I was like, wait, I'm sorry, what? Bill Cosby has been released from prison. This is according to ABC News and many other outlets. Bill Cosby has been released from prison after his conviction on sexual assault charges was overturned by Pennsylvania's highest court. Now, what's powerful about this headline is that it seems that there are people in the higher ups, there are elite people who are in favor of whatever Cosby is wanting, right? And obviously he's wanting for his freedom. So the fact that the people in the highest court decided to overturn this, it really says a lot. It really says that there are major connections beyond what is in your initial surroundings. There's major connections that he has over many people in the elite spaces, and for the highest court to overturn his charges is powerful. And for him to he only spent 3 years out of the 10 years he was convicted for. And you know, oftentimes when I tend to say we because as a teacher, that's like the rhetoric that we use to include the learning process with our students so they won't feel like it's just a targeted thing. But it's really them, right? Y'all niggas need to learn this objective and master it by the end of class today. Hello, teachers, y'all get what I'm saying? Y'all know. But when people are imprisoned, they are given a sentence, and sometimes you are not having to fulfill the whole sentence. You can release early for good behavior, for connections that you may have, and this is the prime example of that. And for Cosby to be released, I'm over the moon. Now, let's talk about the charges, though, because, you know, prior to him being convicted, he was just in the headlines because after one woman to the next woman to 10 women to 20 women to maybe almost 50, I believe, came forward and shared their story of the same accounts that previous quote unquote victims were saying that Cosby drugged and raped them and sexually assaulted them in other ways as well. So when I was first privy to these charges, because apparently this was a rumor that was had many years ago. So during his stand-up career, even in the 90s, 80s, while the Cosby Show was on, but nothing really gave it the push that it needed to gain attention and to gain any actionable steps moving forward. Just recently, 2018, 2017, that's when things started pushing more towards consequences for this alleged behavior, for this alleged crime. I was always I was always me. Let me just be very clear. I have always been me. always been me. And what I mean by that is I've always had a mindset where I am questioning everything and not believing anything initially, right? I am always interested in understanding all sides of the story, in challenging what was presented to me or what is presented to me in order to really process my own thoughts, because too often we're forced to believe one way of thinking and not a lot of people examine different ideas. And so now you're following this bandwagon of one thought. And I guess I'm a free thinker. I never really label myself as such, but I would say I am in that way. So when the stories came about years ago, I remember being in my mid-20s, hearing this, and from then I was like, something don't feel right. Something doesn't feel right to me. Now, what stirred me up a little was that all these women had the same story. Now, what's interesting about me saying that is many people will say, well, that certifies it, right? That makes it true. That makes it real that he did these acts and he is a rapist allegedly and he has done this, X, Y, and Z. I beg to differ. I feel like, there's a little originality that's missing. That's what I'm saying. I think there's a little originality that's missing. I think it's too common. I think it's too easy to have the same story as a previous woman who came forward and shared her story online, in the media. I think it just makes me question. Not to say it couldn't have been real, it couldn't have happened. I'm just saying that makes me pause. It just makes me pause. So I'm standing and I'm processing all of these stories and all of the people coming forward. And you have several women who, well, one in particular is standing out to me right now. I can't remember her name, but she was one of the judges. Y'all know who I'm talking about. One of the judges from America's Next Top Model, white woman, big lips, very, she was very rude on the show, very controversial in a way. She wasn't, I don't want to say she wasn't classy, but like she wasn't like well put together. She wasn't one of those white women who was just like preppy type white woman. She was just kind of rugged, rough around the edges type of white woman. And hold on, what is her name? America Next Top Model judge. I'm just gonna write Cosby, and then Janice Dickinson. Okay, Janice Dickinson is the white woman I'm talking about. And what stirred me wrong about her, not to say, and I guess I have to give disclaimers, it's not to say that women who are rugged around the edges, who are a little controversial, little rebellious, it's not to say that we can't believe them. It's not to say that they aren't telling the truth all the time. It's just to say, I'm gonna pause for a moment, because I think with her, she has a history of acting and behaving in a way that makes you question her credibility. That's all to say. And it showed a lot when I was an avid watcher of America's Next Top Model. And for her to be one of the women who came forward against Bill Cosby, I was looking at her like, okay. And she was just on a rampage of sharing this alleged story, and pulling out so many detailed pieces that made it easier for us to believe her. I remember when she described a sweater that Bill Cosby wore allegedly during the night when she got raped by him allegedly. And she described the sweater to a T, and somehow the media found an image of the sweater that Bill Cosby was wearing that night, and it certified it. And it was like, girl, what? I could have thought of, how many sweaters Bill Cosby wore during his tenure on the Cosby Show. You know how many sweaters? Like, it's not to say that this couldn't have happened. I just feel like some of the stories, some of the women aren't credible. Hello? Some of them are not credible, and it makes me wonder, what is the motive? What is the real reason why you're coming forward and being this brave, quote unquote, because many people will describe these women as such, brave, and it is brave, right? If you are a victim of sexual assault, predatory behavior, you are a victim, a victor, however you want to describe it, but you are allowed to share your experiences, and that is totally encouraged. Again, I get it. Trust, I get it. I just also understand that there are people out there who are insistent. There are industries, there are people who are more elite, there are people who are gatekeepers who will try their darndest to tear down anyone who is in their way, who would tear down anyone who is trying to gain more power. And yes, during this time, allegedly Cosby was trying to gain or own or buy, specifically ABC or NBC, one of the channel networks, and he was trying to gain more traction, gain more power, and that is a powerful, to own a media company, that is powerful. You know how much time we spend consuming media in whatever capacity, so whether that's through the actual TV screen or your app. You know, there's an app for ABC, there's an app for NBC, there's an app for anything. There are websites, there are to-go media portals that you could use to watch a news network, to watch a network in general. And to be an owner of that, you are powerful. You can determine what is being consumed, how much of it is being consumed, what propaganda you want to display to the audience. And whether you want to believe it or not, propaganda is real. If we want to go back to Holocaust days, to Hitler when he was ruling the town, he was using the media. He was using that to increase the propaganda needed to increase this hate against the Jewish community, to increase anti-Semitism. So to now be in 2021, and when people are so quick to dismiss quote unquote conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists, as if our thinking or our ideas and our rationale are not at all supported by history, is actually ridiculous. Go back to Holocaust. You can go further down to ancient times. Conspiracy is just what it is. It's a thought, is a plan. It's a fruition of that plan. And when you see it actually happen, wow, that's a conspiracy theory happening, you know? Overall, if we get back to this specific case right here, Bill Cosby, you know, he was the American dad. You know, Bill Cosby reminds me of my dad, just aesthetically, not anything else. My dad is a great man, but just aesthetically, Bill Cosby reminded me of my father. They always had a little joke to say. My dad always has a joke to say. They have the same skin tone, like literally the same complexion, same shaped head, same dad belly. Like, yeah, when I looked on the screen to watch the Cosby Show, I felt comfortable with the show even more because Bill Cosby reflected my dad. And to turn around and see my dad in real life, right, it's like, oh, look, there's so many comparisons. So it was a great thing. Now, I think about how much of a positive impact Cosby has had on America as a whole, specifically Black America, white America, just every American, every person who consumed that show. You was filled with this awe, this comfort, this familiarity. Or even if you are someone who didn't grow up with a father, this was your dad. This was your comfort. This was your family that you found and you tuned into every week. So to be this powerful of a man, not just through your comedic career, but through this TV program that was, and remember, during this time, when the Cosby Show was out, this was before DVR, this was before you could record. I think this was before VHS recording was a thing. I do remember that time period when if you needed to record, you can use a VHS tape. And for those who may not know, which is crazy, it's like a block that you will put in this device, and then you'll set it up to record a specific time frame on a channel, but you will have to leave your TV on that channel in order to record it from that time frame, from 7 to 8, 7 to 9. So I remember many times in my childhood, my church was my second home. We would go to church pretty often throughout the week, not just a Sunday thing. It was a Friday thing. It was a Saturday thing. It was many times Tuesday nights as well. So during those weeknights, of course, I'm missing my shows, and I couldn't DVR it. I couldn't tune in another time because a repeated episode didn't happen probably like a month later from when the premiere episode came on. Look, I was a TV freak, just as I am now, because I love art in that form. I love art in general, and watching TV was my form of art as well. So I would miss pretty much a lot of shows because I was always at church. And I remember being younger, watching or recording these shows that I would miss, or even award shows. We would use a VHS tape, okay? So this was during a time when VHS tape recordings was not even happening, was not even a thing yet. So you would have to really schedule your time, schedule your days to watch this show. And people did. People clocked in. You was tuned in. You wasn't distracted because you was on your phone as well. You wasn't doing two things at once. You was really focused on this show. You was really into this show. You will talk about it with your friends, with your colleagues, with your peers afterwards. Did you see the Cosby show? That scene was so funny with Theo. All of these things was just embedded into our culture. So Cosby had a great place in our hearts overall, not just our homes, but our hearts. So for years later to come, and Cosby to be convicted, and to not just before convicted, but to be accused of these heinous acts. First, it starts with your perception. Once your perception is now challenged and is now seen as a predator, is now seen as this deceitful, just horrible person, now everything that you thought was real is suddenly crashing down. Everything that you thought was real is suddenly not real. Everything that you wanted to happen is suddenly not what at all you presumed it to be, because of what the media is now saying about this man, this hero, Bill Cosby. He's a predator. He's a rapist. He drugged women. It's very disheartening and it's uncomfortable to accept. And this was during a time when the Me Too era was coming about and people were gaining confidence. Women were gaining confidence to speak up about their own sexual trauma that they've experienced in their life. And as much as that is a powerful movement, it sometimes can be used as a tool to tear down people, and it's used in vain. And what I mean by that is there are people in general, men and women, who may want to use something for their advantage, and they may want to fabricate a story. They may want to make up a whole story in order to gain traction, in order to gain attention, in order to gain power. So whoever they are accusing does not have power anymore. It's all right here, man. It's all right here. I feel like Dr. Umar. It's all right here, man. He doesn't do that, but like that's something that he would do in my head. So for Cosby to now be seen as this predatory man, it's disheartening, right? So that's hard. Now let's talk about Quaaludes. Let's talk about Quaaludes, because I want us to understand what the fuck that is. What are Quaaludes? Quaaludes are a sedative and hypnotic medication. It was sold under the brand names Quaalude and Soper, among others, and it contained methylqualone, and it was sold as a combination drug. Okay, it was a drug, okay? It was a drug that hypnotized you. A sedative makes you feel relaxed and at ease. It brought you to a place of it was a good time drug, apparently, from what I understand. And it was the drug of choice. It was the casual drug of choice. Let me be very clear. It was a casual drug of choice during the 70s and maybe the 60s as well, like late 60s and definitely early 80s. But during the whole 70s era, Quaaludes was that girl. Just like how Perks, Molly is that girl today in some circles, in many circles, sure. But I'm hearing cocaine is back. Hello? This is Mike. I'm hearing cocaine. It maybe not crack. Maybe crack, but I'm hearing cocaine is back. And what I mean by cocaine is, we know what cocaine is, but cocaine in the respects of is being done by people who are professionals, people who have lives and who are seemingly successful, who are doing well in life, and they're sniffing that cocaine. Look, child, we'll get to that. But Quaaludes, I'm gonna read what Quaaludes feel like. So people who take Quaaludes, they experience deep relaxation and a feeling of euphoria. But it can also cause serious problems. So it could be there could be a drop in blood pressure, seizures can occur, vomiting, and confusion are many of the side effects of this deadly drug. So you can die from Quaaludes. And I'm sure many people did during this time. But again, this was a drug of choice. This was a casual drug that was done very commonly, just society accepted it. It wasn't a big deal. It was just like, okay, you going to a party, you party, right? And party was the term that was used to describe your way of saying, hey, you got that stuff, or even saying you got that stuff, but you got that stuff may sound too obvious. But if you say, oh, I'm gonna have a good time, I'm gonna party, that is sometimes code for you got drugs, you got Quaaludes, you got cocaine, whatever the casual drug of choice is at that time. Now, I bring that up because this was what allegedly Cosby used to spike the drinks of the women who came forward and said that they were assaulted by him. Allegedly, again. Quaaludes, though. Now, let's talk about that, because I think when we sit back and realize, okay, many people are on drugs. Let's just be very honest here. Even to this day, many people are functional drug users. Maybe not addicts necessarily, but they use drugs from time to time. And if you want to go super woke, well, we all do drugs. You take sugar, right? You fucking, I'm not sniffing it. It's a difference, okay? But you take sugar, right? You drink caffeine. What else people say? That is like a common thing that people will use against people when they try to demonize and just be condescending towards people who do hard drugs. But I guess sugar is a hard drug in a way. But regardless, you know what I mean. Cocaine and sugar might be two different things. Let's just talk, okay? So Quaaludes was one of those drugs that was that girl, and people did it casually. It was a thing to do. People were willing participants of this drug. Now, when I think about many women who came forward against Cosby, I do wonder, even at that time when the stories came out initially, I wondered if they all just took the drug together, right? It was a willingly experience. It was a thing that was done as a choice, right? I wonder if that was done as a casual thing in order to just really have a good time, to experience that deep relaxation, to experience that euphoria. I wonder if after they took the drug, they decided to go ahead and fuck, because why not? You're relaxed now, you feel euphoric. What's the next thing to do? Fuck, right? So fuck mean consensual. Fuck mean two people or more, not judging, but two people are deciding to come together in sexual union and engage in this euphoric, sex is already euphoric in my opinion, and now you add Quaaludes to it. Oh, that shit is popping. I'm guessing, again, I haven't done drugs has Quaaludes or any drug, but that is something that is, it's something that is engaging. It's probably pleasing. It feels more enticing. Like, oh, you got that you got that stuff. And I don't know what they called it back then. I'm sure they didn't say quaaludes. That sounds kind of corny. You got quaaludes. Or maybe they did. But that was the thing that was done very commonly. It was what you do before you have sex so that your sex feels even amazing. And you know what I noticed? A lot of, I don't know about a lot, but I do know some women who experience more of that euphoric, because again, I think sex is already euphoric, but when you add something more, you feel more euphoric in that experience. And I know some women like to get choked out. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, what? Hello? You said what? Some women like to get choked out. Some women like to get choked out. And I'm not there yet. Maybe I will be. I'm not here to judge. I think, what you do for sexual pleasure, as long as it's not harming anyone and is done consensually, then it's fine. But it's just interesting. Like, wow, y'all are freaky, damn. But that is done pretty often in sex. And apparently when you get choked out, while I don't know what position you're in, but in some position, it helps increase that euphoric feeling. Hey, that's amazing. Good for you. I'm not there. Maybe I will be. I don't know. But I don't know. But I say all that's to say that people do things to gain more euphoria, to gain more relaxation, to really have a good time. And Quaaludes was that thing to do to feel that. It was that thing to do to have a good time. So I think about the women who accused him. I just wonder, like, and I want us to be able to have these conversations, to wonder, to question, to discuss, to process, instead of just immediately following suit with this bandwagon. Oh, you say he's a predator. Let's talk about it. Let's just talk. And it doesn't mean to demean or undermine someone's experiences, because, I know people who have been actually sexually assaulted, and I am always on their side. That is always it. And I could also say, right? See how I'm adding additives? I could also say that we could also have conversations where we could really assess and evaluate the situation all together to understand what really happened, what really went down. I think what really went down, and obviously I wasn't there, this is all speculative, but I think what really went down is there were women who engaged in sexual acts with him, full-on sex with him, and this was during a time when he is still married, so he was still, doing his thing. He was the height of his career and really the powerful black man that he was at that time. He was using it all up to really enjoy his experience, his height on the roller coaster. I think he and the women engage in consensual sex, and the sex was had under this substance of Quaaludes. I think they all engage in sex. Look, maybe there are one, two, maybe, I don't know, but maybe there were a couple of cases that weren't too consensual or consensual at all. I don't know, but I also want us to understand that Quaaludes was a drug of choice that was casual, that was done very commonly during that time. So to not even consider the fact that, hey, maybe both participants actually wanted to engage in sexual acts and wanted to do it under the substance of Quaaludes, like that could also, for that to not even be considered as a possibility and to be immediately labeled as a conspiracy theorist is ridiculous. Can we just look at the fucking facts? Can we look at the fucking facts? This was a thing that was done very commonly. You think about nowadays how perks and how, like I said, cocaine is coming back, but even with weed, Cocaine, crack cocaine in the 90s, that was the thing. That was the casual drug of choice. Niggas and white people as well. Many white people. First, it was the elitist drug. You sniff a little cocaine while you're up in the hills, in the mansions. And that was the thing to do. And if you're in an impoverished area, crack was available to you. And that was just a drug of choice that was casual, that was common, that was regular during the 90s. And now we have the 2010s. If we want to go down that specific era, perks and Molly, that was a thing. And maybe still may be a thing, but that was a thing that was a common drug to do. And cocaine, like I said, is making a comeback. Niggas are on cocaine. And look, that's just how culture is. Sometimes we are just victims of our culture. Can we sit with that? Sometimes we are just victims of our culture. Sometimes we are just sitting with the actions that was commonly had of the culture at that time. And years later, we look back, or society looks back, and now we are looked at as predators, as creepy people, as just these demons who did awful things when everybody was doing that, right? Like everybody, that was just a normal thing to do. No one said it was awful during that time because it wasn't. So again, I think it's just oftentimes is just a victim of the circumstance, and specifically a victim of your culture at the time. Culture changes. You are not always going to be in this culture for long. 5 years from now, things will be different. But now we live in a culture where you have to be politically correct. And if you're not politically correct, that means you are a MAGA supporter and MAGA. If you dare to agree with one or two things or give credit to Trump for something that he may have done during his tenure as president, MAGA. If you dare to question what impact economically did Obama have towards the black community, MAGA, like MAGA. Damn, I just have questions. I just want to have a conversation. I just want to understand, how come this didn't add up, right? I just want to understand why Biden still hasn't forgiven loans. I want to understand why Kamala said America isn't a racist country. I want to understand a couple of things that I thought would have been had because you said something totally different while you was running, while you were campaigning. But now it's America is not a racist country. And Biden, who called black kids a jungle and the environment of black kids being a jungle and calling black kids monkeys and apes and all this shit years ago in the early 90s, now he's seen as this black savior for us. But if you question that, MAGA! Like, bitch, then maybe I'm fucking MAGA then. Maybe I'm fucking MAGA. Maybe I'm Republican because, god damn, maybe I am. Because I think about, we just have to get to a point where we have to move forward from this politically correct shit. We have to. You know what I can't stand the most? I can't stand a politically correct black person. Oh my. If my pussy doesn't get dry enough, it will dry up like the Sahara Desert when I'm around a politically black person. Let's be specific here. A politically correct black man. One of those super progressive black man. I can't breathe. My pussy will not get wet for you at all. I can't breathe. I cannot breathe. So I think about just because why I get dry, because you're the very group of people, black men, you are the very group of people who have been demonized, who have been beaten and killed historically by white men, who have been set up by white women, but your wife is white. Look, that was the last episode. We got to move on. But you have been beaten up to the core by society, by white men, by white women. Yet now you are just on the coast. You're skating because you want to please massa. And oftentimes, white supremacists are not always white. The gatekeepers of white supremacy are not always white, okay? And this is coming from the realization, I talked about this on an episode of our Patreon page. Please go check it out at patreon.com/GodBuiltThis. I talk about how, and I'm not going to go into detail because I want you to go to our Patreon page, so shout out to there. But just to synopsis up or summarize it up, at the workplace, you realize that there are people who, it's one thing to play politics, but it's another thing to play a white supremacist gatekeeper. It's one thing to do whatever is possible to silence black women, me, hey, I'm a black woman, and to be silenced by, you expect it from a white man, you expect it from anyone else but a nigga. Okay? And to have black men silence black women and silence you in a way that upholds white supremacy, I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss with that, because it disturbs me just as much as it disturbs me when I see a black man with a white woman. But that's the whole, we got to move on, mama. We got to, love is love, right? But honestly, it does, because I think about, like, just historically, you have black men beaten up by white men, accused by white women, being penalized, sent to being in prison for years to come by this white supremacist ideology, all these things, and they're not supporting the very black woman who's been supporting them. Oh, they're not loving on and being in a beautiful relationship, marriage with the black woman that's been riding for them. Yet they're calling black women angry and attitude, and they can't they don't know how to appreciate their man, and maybe some are, maybe some are, but the point is, oftentimes when I see black men with white women, and I'm gonna be specific to white women, oftentimes when I see them with white women, they do it in spite of black women. They do it to put down black women. And I do believe love is love. You can love other races. You can love other ethnicities. And you can fall in love with other groups of people. Absolutely. I think it's awful, though, when you do that in spite of black women. Like, you know what? Fuck black women. I'm gonna marry a white girl. She knows how to love me. Oh, they know how to love black men. They know how to suck my dick. And it's like, have you met the right black woman, though? Hello? Hello. Anyway, I don't know how we got here. Oh, we got here because black men are sometimes the gatekeepers of white supremacy. Okay? And I talk about that more in detail in regards to a personal, professional experience that I had regarding this topic. Check that out on our Patreon page at patreon.com/GodBuiltThis. Quaaludes, again, it was a drug of choice. And just another disclaimer, I'm not here to encourage or advocate for drugs, for substance abuse. I do want to be very clear, though. Though I have an experience with those type of drugs, I dabble in weed, and it's just not my thing. It doesn't really do it for me. I had weed gummies and stuff like that, like weed candy. That's cool, I guess. It didn't really do it. I think my experience overall, when I had weed chocolate. I had it with Boston Bay. So already it was a bad experience, right? Just by saying that. But I remember having it with him, and he just was not helpful. Like, he didn't guide me in. I feel like when you're having any substance experience with anybody, and especially it's your first time, the person who's introducing it to you should help you through it, should guide you through it, should tell you, hey, you may feel this, or, you can lay down if you want, here's some water, kind of be there, be fucking there. Okay? Boston Bay wasn't there. He was physically there, but he's always been high. So being high is nothing new to him, but I think he dismissed the effects that I could feel and the comfort that I would need at that time. And he just wasn't a great person to get high with for the first time. So that was a horrible experience. I remember after, because I was with him, it was nighttime. And I went home. No, I left early that following morning, and I had to pull over as I was driving home. And thankfully, he didn't live too far from my family's house back in Boston. So I'm driving home, and I'm feeling super nauseous. Like, ooh, what's going on? And I feel just right out of the high, but I'm still kind of not fully sober. So I pull over, I throw up, just a little like, clear out the intestines. I throw up, and I call him. Letting him know, hey, I don't feel too well, and I'm going to take today off, because that was actually a work day. So I took the day off, and I knew his work schedule was like a little different. I didn't think he worked that day anyway. So I thought to myself, and I said to him that, hey, I'm going to take today off, and I don't feel too well. I just finished throwing up on the side of the road. Can I come back to your house and we can just spend another few hours or the whole day together? Just kind of wanting to still be with him, wanting to bond after this experience and share with him my takes from it. Y'all, this nigga is such a narcissist. He was just horrible. He yelled at me on the phone. I was like, I gotta pick up my son, Max. You know I gotta pick up my son. What the fuck? I don't. Just like going off. Was nowhere available emotionally for me. Was not interested in, hey, how you feeling? Or sure, you could come over. Even if you did have to pick up your son. So, no, not pick up. He had to drop his son off to school. Okay, you could still drop him off, and I can still be at the house. Like, he was just a horrible being. And I just remember that experience. I just was turned off ever since. I never had any weed gummies, weed chocolate, anything since then. And that was years ago. So it really matters who you have who you have sex with, right? And who you have drugs with for the first time in particular. So again, I'm not encouraging drug use. If you are, hopefully you are an adult listening to this, and you are a full-fledged adult, meaning that you are not easily influenced. Consider yourself and what you plan to do for your life. Overall, Quaaludes was a drug of choice, and Cosby, I don't know. I think ultimately the victim. I think he was a victim of the culture that he was in at the time. And because of this culture, and because how cultures change, years later, he is now seen as a predator, even though this was a thing that was done very casually back then. Not to say rape was very casual, that was the thing to do, but Quaaludes was a thing to do, and Quaaludes and sex was definitely a thing to do. So to immediately paint that as predatory, I find that to be a fault. And rape culture is a thing. That's a whole different conversation, and I'll have that conversation another time. But in this case, I feel like Cosby, look, he's 83, y'all. He's 83. What is a 10-year? And I also want to talk about how, I gotta head out real quick, but I want to talk about how, like, excuse me. Okay, I lost my train of thought. I want to talk about how, shit, I forgot what I was going to say. But let's read this quote, this tweet that Felicia Rashad wrote. She said, finally, a terrible wrong is being righted. A miscarriage of justice is corrected. And this is a powerful tweet here because, I remember what I was going to say. Okay, these black woke personalities that we see on YouTube, that we see on Instagram, that we see on Twitter, that say, abolish prisons. There shouldn't be a prison system, and there definitely shouldn't be a private prison system. People shouldn't be getting money off of the backs of incarcerated folks. And but most of the incarcerated folks are black and Hispanic. And prisons should be abolished. There should be no more prisons. Okay. So when you have someone released from prison, for whatever charge. Now you have a problem? But you was just over here 3 months ago talking about abolish prisons, ban prisons. Huh? So what is it? A terrible wrong is being righted, right? A miscarriage of justice is corrected. Thank you, Felicia Rashad, for saying that. But I hate the backlash from many people who just a few months ago was saying prisons should be banned. There shouldn't be a prison system. We should have a restorative practice. There should be no police. There should be more social workers on the streets. If someone's running around with a knife, a social worker should come to them and be like, hey, could you put the knife down? Let's talk about it. Look, I am all for, as someone who embraces talking your feelings out loud, as someone who embraces emotional intelligence, you also need to have consequence, and consequence can sometimes be physical. Consequence can sometimes take you away from your family and your loved ones for a period of time until we realize what else is an alternative for that. But there should be a separation had when you have someone who did heinous crimes, and we're not going to focus on Cosby here because I don't believe he did it, but just in general, other convicts who were found guilty, and there are substantial evidence to support their guilty verdict. I believe and agree that there should be separation. There should be separation had. I'm not gonna be okay with a rapist, a obvious rapist, a known rapist, just chilling around in the neighborhood amongst kids, amongst adults, because adults are subjected to be preyed on as well. And we're just living in this world where nothing is done. Consequences aren't not happening. Consequences are amongst the culture of white supremacy. No, we have to keep prisons alive. Keep prisons alive. So I just think it's funny how many of these woke black folks who was just talking about abolish all prisons are mad that, Cosby is released from prison, but you just said you didn't want prisons anymore. He served 3 years and he's blind. He's legally blind in one eye. He can't really see that well. He's 83. Who the fuck is he raping allegedly now? If all of this is true, who is he raping now? Who can he do that? Nothing can be done. He's not going to be this predatory person. Ciao. Okay? He's not going to be this predatory person. And to basically close out this topic, I do want to just say, because I came across a meme. You know how sometimes on Instagram, people will post pictures of just words, not with a picture, it's just words. And I came across one that talked about, I don't want to look for it right now, but to paraphrase, it basically says how when you side with the predator, or when you question the victim, then you are showing your character, and you are letting the people around you, the women around you, know that you are an unsafe space to have this conversation with, because they may have been they may be sexual victims, sexual assault victims themselves, and they may have their own sexual trauma story that they would love to share aloud. But you, being the person that you are, who is supporting and understanding predatory behavior, that means that you are not creating a safe space for victims. And I just want to say, stop. No. Stop and no. Those are the words. Stop and no. Because like I say all the time, and like I've been saying lately, is two things can still be true. Me wanting more context to be shared when it comes to the Bill Cosby case, me finding it funny, the series of events when it comes to the several hundreds of women who came forward and just their accounts of what allegedly went down, and the similarity, and me not just immediately falling under the bandwagon does not mean I don't support actual, and that's the key word here, does not mean that I don't support actual sexual assault victims. I don't I don't understand why that has to negate my support. And no one came up to me. I'm not taking this necessarily, I think everything personal, but like, I'm just making that clear because I think sometimes that could be the immediate thought after hearing rhetoric like mine, right? Oh, well, she's questioning and she's believing that the conspiracy of they're trying to take this black man down. It's like, yeah, I am. I am. I'm sorry. Things don't add up. And there are instances, even in moments when you should believe the victim, unfortunately, there are people who take advantage of the Me Too movement, people who want to gain power by any means, and they see this as an opportunity to gain power, to gain elitism, to gain money, to gain exposure, and to suppress the person that they're trying to put down, the very person who's trying to gain more power, right? With Bill Cosby, he was allegedly trying to buy one of the channel networks, the basic channel networks, that is a really big deal. So when you have just historically accounts when white women have lied on black men, can we just sit with that? White women historically have lied on, and because of their lies against black men, these black men have been not only incarcerated, but killed. Hello, Emmett Till? Are you there? Emmett Till, are you there? Like, this is historical. So we should be able to have these conversations now, just as we should have been having it years ago, just as we should have been having it during the time when Emmett Till was killed. We're so quick to believe, and of course, Bill Cosby's quote unquote victims were not always white women, but a lot of them were. A lot of them were also women who wanted to gain more access, gain more power, gain more exposure. So it doesn't defeat what I'm saying regardless. And I just want to make it clear that oftentimes, when a white woman says shit, they're lying. Okay, let's move off on this topic. I did not expect to talk about it for 52 minutes. And I want to talk about a few other things that have resonated with me from the past few days. So this critical race theory topic. Oh man, it's a spicy one, huh? Do we have studies and classes that give insight about the historical plight of black people? Or should we move forward? Should we not harp on the past? And this is a tricky topic for me because on one hand, you expect me being a black woman or just a black person in general that I am supposed to just support immediately the push of critical race theory in schools and institutions, etc. Now, the answer to that is really yes and no. So I am for critical race theory being taught in schools. And for those who may not know what that means, I'm going to pull up the definition. Critical race theory, CRT, is a body of legal scholarship and an academic movement of civil rights scholars and activists in the United States that seeks to critically examine U.S. law as it intersects with issues of race in the U.S. and to challenge mainstream American liberal approaches to racial justice. So what the reason why I'm saying yes and no to this argument is that I do believe that there should still be studies that are taught in school focusing on the racial injustices that the black community, have experienced for many years, for centuries. That is what I agree with, right? I think we should have more honest very clear, nothing around the bush, nothing politically correct, like throwaway politically correctness. I want it to be raw. I don't want us to say servitude. I don't want us to say indentured servants. I want us to say slaves or enslaved Africans, right? Because Africans at the time, yes, they were slaves, but we also want to look at them as a whole being. They were not just slaves. They were mothers, fathers, children, aunts, uncles, teachers, singers, songwriters, artists. There were so many things as well. And sometimes when we just say slaves, we take away from their other parts of their identity. So I do agree with that. And maybe that is being politically correct, but I do agree with that. Someone's whole identity is should not just be conflated into, oh, he was a slave. Okay, but what else? What else? Okay, so with critical race theory, I am for it being taught in schools. What I do agree with, though, on the other side of the argument, because, I got to talk about the other side. What I do agree with on the other side of the argument is that the issue with critical race theory is sometimes being taught endlessly of the plight of Black America and the plight of Black progression in America, and oh, woe is me, I'm Black and I will never experience success. I will never experience wealth, and I have always been oppressed and I will always be oppressed. The issue with that is it is just so negative, and we harp on the negativity too much sometimes. And the issue with that is we don't recognize the strides and the success and the amazing stories and the excellence of Black culture, of Blackness, of just Black people in America. So what I would love for critical race theory to include is the existence of Black excellence. I want us to really see, wow, look at the strides that Nina Simone made. Look at the strides that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. made. Look at all the strides that they made to progress our country as a whole. I don't want to only talk about the pain and trauma of Blackness in America, because then that continues the argument, the backlash that people have against Lena Waithe and her writing when it comes to Black trauma and Black pain, and how her projects focus primarily on that rather than Black joy. I want us to include Black joy when it comes to critical race theory. So if Black joy can be included while also being honest of the painful history of Black America, of Black people in America, then I'm for it. So yeah, so it's a yes or no for me. I do. There's these a lot of white, I don't know if they're congressmen or they just work in the Senate, whatever. But their fear with critical race theory is that they feel like it teaches hate. It teaches Black people to have an uproar against white people. And that should have happened a long time ago. But I don't support that. Absolutely not. I think when we're not being honest, we're living a lie, and we have to be honest and live in truth. So these painfully honest lessons that we should include in critical race theory is needed and should be continued and should be had. Look, I live in Texas, and I don't know how it is in other states. I never looked into how it was in Massachusetts, but I know in Texas, the curriculum here, the TA curriculum, when it comes to social studies or what else, U.S. government, stuff like that, they don't at all keep it 1,000 when it comes to just the Black trauma that has been had historically in America. They dumb it down. They don't even include it. They don't really put much focus into it in their studies. And this is a great topic that I could bring up to fellow teachers, particularly teachers who are focused in their practice for social studies, for US Gov, stuff like that. They would know more about it. But I would hear that the curriculum that they are forced and mandated to teach does not include the honesty of Black trauma in America and the reality of how the U.S. government has oppressed and continues to try to oppress Black people in America. So that is the unfortunate part of it. And I think with critical race theory, it could allow for more honest, real, needed conversations, lectures, studies when it comes to the Black experience in America. So yes, I do agree critical race theory is needed to be taught in schools, even in prisons, wherever. But I also think there needs to be some inclusion or a good amount of inclusion of Black joy. We need to uplift our Black children and make them feel like, yeah, okay, we have this oppressed history, but I want you to realize how powerful you are. And look at all these other powerful Black people who made a way out of no way. Biggie, he just came in my head, but Biggie, hello, made a way, go to that damn lyric of his. I can't think of it right now, but he was... birthdays were the worst days. Now we sipping champagne because we're thirsty. That is progression. So look at Biggie. God rest his soul. But the point of what I'm saying is there is so much Black joy and Black progression and Black excellence. And however, yeah, he did it through the drugs and, maybe it's not moral. Maybe it's not morally acceptable, but the point is he experienced success. He was able to pull himself out of poverty. He was able to pull himself and provide success and wealth for himself, for his mother, for his children. It's an amazing thing, okay? To experience birthdays as a worst day because your mom, your dad, your guardian couldn't celebrate you, didn't have enough money to celebrate you, and now you are sipping champagne just because you're thirsty? I mean, nigga, what? Nigga, what? Where's the Prosecco? Okay, that is success. So if we could include some Black joy, that is needed, that is necessary. Okay. Let's talk about Sha'Carri. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. Sha'Carri. What is her last name? I'm gonna hold on real quick. I have Sha'Carri Richardson. Yes, I had that in my head. So Sha'Carri Richardson, who just a few days ago was this amazing athlete, track star, and she still is. Not to say that she's not, but just a few days ago, I became aware of her, and I don't know anyone else who knew her before, but when things go viral, you are more aware of that person, and you are now looking into her, and I went through her Instagram real quick just to kind of feel her out, and just a feat that she was showing in that moment. She ran 10.8 hold on, where is it? 10.8. Okay, so she ran, look, I'm not a track star, I don't know the actual verbiage, but 10.8 seconds. So she ran the fastest, okay? She Usain Bolt in this bitch. She ran the fastest, and she did it in 10.8 seconds. It has to be 10.8 seconds. And she won that race, and she was on her way to running and competing in the Olympics. Until something got in the way. Something got in the way. And... Look, she is human. I want to give grace, and I am giving grace. I am giving grace and compassion because, okay, for those who may not be familiar, so she is an athlete. She was almost going to compete in the Olympics, but she was tested positive for marijuana, and that has made her now disqualified to compete in the Olympics, and she is now in a 30-day suspension. Her explanation and her reasoning behind her intake of marijuana was due to her coping with the passing of her mother, who passed when she found out that news apparently through a third party, a reporter, someone who told her, who was not a close relative, a loved one of hers, and she was coping with it. And of course, losing anyone, my God, I can't. Grieving is difficult as hell. And who am I to tell you how to grieve, how to cope with death, how to cope with a hard day? Everyone grieves differently, everyone feels differently, and copes differently, right? All of that is true. So I'm not necessarily judging her for deciding to go towards marijuana to grieve. Now, what disappoints me, though, that's the perfect word for it, is disappointing that she, yes, of course, had to grieve, had to find some sort of release to experience and process this pain of losing her mother. But what disappoints me, though, is that she has worked so hard, obviously, right? She has to be where she is athletically, to be where she is accomplishments-wise, and to essentially throw it all away. And yes, every 4 years is an opportunity, but in this very moment, at that very moment, she essentially threw it all away for some weed. Now, y'all know I don't really like weed. Maybe I'm just biased. Maybe I'm just a little biased, but it just sucks because I wish she would have done it another way. I wish she would have journaled, right? I wish she would have prayed. I wish she would have, drink alcohol. Like, I don't know, is alcohol permitted to consume, as you're an athlete? I don't think alcohol is permitted, or not permitted, I should say. I feel like, yes, although marijuana is, all these marijuana enthusiasts want to come out the fucking gate. Like, can y'all sit down? Can y'all sit down? It's just weed. Yes, it is just weed. Yes, I still agree with that. Even though I may not like marijuana like that, I still agree with y'all. It is just weed. It's just a plant. Yes, I agree. It's an herb. People use it for medicinal purposes. Absolutely. There are freaking CBD shops, THC shops. There are legalized states, 19 plus legalized states in America that have legalized recreational weed, recreational marijuana. So yes, all of this is silly. Like, it sucks. This should not have been something marked against her. She should not have been persecuted and disqualified for this. I agree with all of that. I have no arguments against that. I am in complete support. But you know what? This is just what it is in this very time. That's just what I'm saying. And what I mean by that is currently, and maybe in 4 years, the Olympics will update their outdated and archaic policies, and I hope that they do. But until then, right now, it is banned. And it sucks, but it's banned. And sometimes you have to kind of play with the system. And as soon as you're done, right? Like, maybe as soon as she's done with the system and she doesn't have to get tested for a good amount of time, go ahead and have your fun. But until then, you have to unfortunately comply. And it's just disappointing because she has worked so hard to be at this very moment. She has just received all of this exposure, this viral moment, and to now have it all taken away because of weed, right? And I'm going back to what y'all was saying. It's just weed. She shouldn't be. Now I'm saying it's just, she got everything taken away from her because of weed. It just sucks. That's all I'm saying. It really just sucks. And I'm so sorry that this is the outcome. I'm sorry that her mother passed. I'm sorry that she's grieving. I'm sorry that she can't compete. Like, all of this just sucks. And I don't agree with it, right? I don't agree that the Olympics should have this as a model. And am not in favor of it. But unfortunately, we just live in a time right now when it comes to, if you're an athlete competing or attempting to compete in the Olympics, you have to unfortunately comply until things do change, and they change effectively and immediately, right? But until then, I would hate for you to rebel and have everything that you ever wanted taken away from you. It just sucks. It just sucks. So my heart goes out to her. I feel sorry for the whole situation. Just sucks. The whole situation just sucks, and it's sparking up a lot of different points that definitely deemed to be racist when it comes to black athletes in general, and in comparison to white athletes. You know, when what's that swimmer guy, Ryan Lochte, I think that's his last name, when he had his whole episode in Asia. Was he in China or something? He was somewhere, and then he was on drugs. I don't know what type of drugs, but he was acting a damn fool. While being on drugs, he was vandalizing whatever it was in a whole different country. So he was vandalizing and on drugs, and this was an embarrassment because he's representing America. Look at the embarrassment. And though he did receive backlash, I did notice many people in the media at the time, excuse him for his behavior. They said basically, well, he was a kid. He's just being a boy. He was young, and you know, let's just forgive him. And that's the issue here. Like, we sometimes show, well, more times than not, we show grace towards white athletes in comparison to black athletes. And though he did receive, he received a criminal charge. He was suspended for 10 months. So he did get some consequences from it, but the morale of it, like, just like the everyday folk who talked about it, they still gave him a slap on the wrist, like, oh, he's just being a guy, he's just being a young kid. And though he did receive punishment for it, there were consequences for it. The people who were still reporting the news felt bad for him. There was still some sympathy had for him. And unfortunately, with Sha'Carri, hope I'm saying her name correctly, Sha'Carri Richardson, there was a lot of backlash. And maybe I sound like I'm giving her backlash too. I'm not trying to. I'm really not. It's all just disappointing. That's the tone that you're hearing. That's the feel that I am expressing as best as I can. It's all just very disappointing. Let's wrap up with one last topic. Or should I? Hold on. Where are we at? 112. Okay, so Wendy Williams. Okay, so Wendy Williams, let me go ahead and play this clip for y'all, and then we'll talk about it. Let's talk about it after.
Social media like that regarding influencers and what all goes on, but there's this woman, her name is Tabitha Brown. Oh, you know her? Clap if you know her. Oh my God, good. I don't know her. Well, she's an influencer, and she's saying that she's retiring her husband. He's been a police officer for 15 years, and he wants to live out his dreams. Take a look. I have to say it to you, babe. It's time. It's time. It's time for him to dream again.
Okay, so that's a backstory. Now let's hear Wendy's response to Tabitha Brown's support for her husband, who has recently retired from 15 years on the force.
Nope. I was married to one of those. I make the money and so on and so forth. Go live your dreams, buy a business, stay with me, but go. You see how that turned out. I I predict that this marriage is going to be on real rocky ground.
Okay, so I just want to make this very, very clear. I just got to make this very clear. Hold on. Okay. I think traditional roles are necessary for the most part, right? No, don't abuse me, right? I think sometimes when we think of traditional roles, we think the husband hitting the wife. Maybe that's not what y'all think, but I feel like sometimes people do think that, like, oh, you're gonna live in an oppressive. The woman has no voice. The wife has no voice. The wife has no power. The wife has no say so. And yes, there was a time in which marriages were definitely reflective of that. But that's not what I mean by when I say traditional roles. What I mean by traditional roles is, not hitting me. Why am I laughing? No, what I mean by traditional roles is basically the man, the husband, has to be the provider, the protector, for the most part, at least. All I'm saying is that when the wife is the one being the breadwinner, when the wife is the one supporting the household wholly by herself, let's say that's because it's one thing to be in a marriage, to be in a relationship, to live with someone, and you guys are in agreement with who pays what, and there is partnership, there is commitment had to supporting both parties together, right? There's a choice there, there's an intention there, and that's great. I'm not saying that the man has to pay for everything and you just sit back and, your feet's up, or not. I mean, you may do your part and clean and cook and all these things, but the point is, for the most part, if you see a wife doing everything, and by everything I mean paying for the mortgage, paying the car note, paying the light bill, paying the cable bill, nigga, I'm paying the Roku too. Like, the wife is doing the grunt work, and the husband is whatever his situation is, but he cannot afford to support or provide most of the support financially in the household. Something's wrong. Hello? Is this thing on? Something is wrong. Something is fundamentally wrong. There is an issue here. And this is why I support Wendy Williams here. I think ultimately the man has to be the man and the woman has to be the woman. Hello? I know we can't say that in 2021, and being a black woman, you can't say that. You're taking steps back. No. Absolutely not. You have to play your part and do it effectively. And of course, within your relationship, you guys decide what works best for you two. But has people who are like, we have innate things that we have to fulfill, right? As a man, you innately are a protector. You innately are a provider. You innately create a security in the home, because that is just who you are in your divine masculinity, in your whole essence as a man. And what is a manifestation of that is, well, I am, and even if the wife makes more, right? Maybe you guys are working different fields and she does make more. That's fine. I don't think that's not what I'm saying here. It's just that if the man is down and out, or lack ambition, lack hard work ethic, and cannot support or provide support in the household, and the wife is doing everything, there is something fundamentally wrong here, and things will not last at all. I wholeheartedly believe that. I do believe in the divine order of things, and we have to adhere to that unless we want a broken marriage, unless we want a broken relationship. There has to be parts held up to reverence so that both parties can innately be who they are. I'm a woman. I innately am nurturing. I am innately a caretaker, and I innately like to provide a peacefulness in the environment that I'm in with my man, and I feel that way innately, right? It's not something that I have to work hard at being. That is who I am innately. Now, if I'm in a relationship, if I'm in a marriage that is not allowing me to innately be myself, that is a fundamental problem. Okay? So you have Tabitha Brown, and look, the thing is, I think everything is done with well intentions, but so she retires, quote unquote, her husband after 15 years of being on the force, and he wants to pursue his dreams. And I don't know what his dreams are. I don't follow her, and I'm not gonna go on TikTok to figure it out. I don't really care. I'm just picking this up as a topic because it's very interesting, but I don't know what his dreams are. But for the 15 years that he's been on the force, he was supporting her in her dreams, in her pursuit. And they've been broke for a long time, she said. They've been through the struggle together. And I understand that. I also just understand that a lot of men, and it's not to say it's toxic masculinity, it's just you are innately this way. And when men are not able to be their innate selves, there will be resentment grown, and there will be rocky roads ahead if things are not shifted back into their divine order. So I wish them well. They've been together for a while, and I would hate for them to experience, or for Tabitha to experience success, and the next thing you know, look, I could already see it going. I'm not going to speak it out loud. Because honestly, we already know where shit could go. You see pictures, and then Wendy Williams coming on like, I told you so. You see pictures of him with some, and I'm not even going to speak that. But all I know is shit needs to be in their divine order, and it needs to be done accordingly, because of stuff like this potentially happening because of resentment. And apparently, I don't know, but some people have been saying that people who follow her on social media, and when he being her husband will show up on her vlogs or her videos, he looked like he shows resentment in his video, like he's not too happy. He doesn't look happy. He doesn't. And it's like, damn, it's already showing. This nigga's that is hilarious to me. So sometimes it just shows. And maybe people are looking into it too deeply. I don't know. I believe with all of my might, things that need to be had in traditional ways for the most part. And when I say most part, I'm saying like, of course, there could be some compromises made financially, right? Like maybe you and your partner feel like it's best for, it could be 60% the husband paying towards the mortgage and 40% you. Like, that's fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't subscribe to not contributing in that way at all. I mean, that'd be nice. But I understand that the world that we live in, it's hard to take all of the weight on your own. So I totally understand different relationships and marriages that just allocate different financial responsibilities, and that works best for your relationship. But I believe that for the most part, there needs to be a divine order of things. There needs to be just a tradition that is held that allows both parties, man and woman, to innately be their full selves in that dynamic. Okay, thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate every listen. Continue to reach out to me if you have feedback and you want to just share your thoughts on any of the topics that I have talked about. Please be respectful though, because I know sometimes these topics are controversial and it's like, oh my gosh, she said that. I am gonna continue to be bold, and I encourage everyone to be bold in their takes, in their opinions, and doing it with respect, right? So Not to say no one has come to me with disrespect. I'm just saying, I just feel like I needed to say that. But yeah, I encourage anyone to continue to share this podcast. Tell a friend, share it on social media if you would like. I would like for you to do so. And also check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/GodBuiltThis. And I will check in with you guys next time. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of God Built This podcast with your host, Maxine. Be sure to leave a review, give me 5 stars, and of course, subscribe. Also, follow God Built This podcast on Instagram at God Built This Pod. God bless.